It was supposed to be just another Wednesday night at the El Capitan Theater on Hollywood Boulevard. The audience was packed, the lights warm, and the laughter cue operator was already testing the buttons. Jimmy Kimmel's team moved like a machine, last minute. Makeup checks, teleprompters loaded, producers whispering into earpieces. Nothing suggested that anything historic was about to happen. Sylvester Stallone arrived right on schedule, not a second early or late. Wearing a navy sport coat over a black shirt, he looked relaxed, maybe even a little amused. He'd done talk shows since before much of the crew was born. The plan was simple: promote season 2 of Tulsa King, maybe tell a funny story or two, then head home and let the PR team handle the rest. No surprises expected, but tension had been building. Just a week earlier, Stallone had made a comment during an interview with the Palm Beach Post that stirred reactions. When asked about leadership in Hollywood, he had pivoted, calling Donald Trump a wrecking ball. Sure, but sometimes you need one to clear out the junk. The internet reacted the way it usually does. Some praised him, others criticized him. But Stallone didn't backpedal or explain. He just left the comment as is naturally. Someone was going to bring it up live, and that someone, of course, was Jimmy Kimmel. Kimmel has a reputation for sharp jabs. While he's usually playful, he doesn't hold back when it comes to celebrities who wade into political waters, especially pro-Trump ones. His writers likely saw Stallone's remark as an opportunity to fire off a few barbed jokes. Kimmel had done it before. No reason to stop now. Backstage, Stallone sipped water and cracked a few jokes with the hair guy. He looked comfortable, like someone who knew exactly how these nights worked. But if you watched closely, his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Not that he was nervous. He was just ready. And that's different. The show kicked off on time. Kimmel opened with his standard monologue, shots at tech CEOs, a nod to the latest celebrity breakup, and then came the transition. Ladies and gentlemen, my next guest is the man who made boxing gloves iconic, took on Russia during the Cold War, and apparently thinks Donald Trump is the second coming of Abraham Lincoln. Please welcome Sylvester Stallone. The audience laughed, some awkwardly, some winced. Stallone came out smiling, waving to the crowd. He shook Kimmel's hand, sat down, and got comfortable. But Kimmel wasn't interested in easing in. Before Stallone could settle, Kimmel leaned forward with a smirk. So, Trump, huh? I guess Rocky took one too many hits to the head. Laughter rippled through the room. But not from everyone. Stallone didn't react with anger or offense. He stayed quiet, watching Kimmel for a beat. Then came the shift. Just a tilt of the head, a calm smile. Yeah, maybe, he said with a pause. Then, but at least I didn't get slapped on Oscar night and sit there doing nothing. Silence. But not the uncomfortable kind, the electric kind, the kind that sets the tone for what's coming next. Then came the eruption of laughter. Not the usual polite chuckle, but something different. It wasn't just the words. It was who delivered them. Stallone had just flipped the script on live television, and everyone felt it. Kimmel looked shaken for the first time that evening. The smirk faded. He leaned back slightly, blinking. Okay, he said with a nervous laugh. We're going there tonight. But Stallone didn't push. He didn't need to. He let the silence hang, controlled and deliberate, like someone who's taken and thrown punches before and knows exactly how to time the next one. Then, in that unmistakable gravelly voice, he continued. You know, Jimmy, I've been taking punches on screen for decades. I've had people come at me from every direction, and I'm still standing. His tone wasn't defensive. It was firm, even, and it landed. Kimmel adjusted in his chair, clearly trying to regain footing. Still standing, he repeated with a forced grin. Well, you've got that in common with Trump, too. He's still standing after everything. Stallone didn't blink. Difference is, I stood for something on screen. He stands for something off it. doesn't mean you have to agree with him. But it does mean you don't get to act like you're better just because you have a desk and a camera. The audience responded. Some clapped. Others stayed quiet, caught off guard by the seriousness of his tone. Kimmel tried steering things back. So, Tulsa King, you're back for season 2. How's the old gangster life treating you? But Stallone wasn't done. You brought up politics, he said with a slight shrug. So let's talk real for a second. This country's got more problems than which celebrity voted for who. That's the problem with shows like this. You guys think every disagreement needs to be a punchline. The audience was split again. But this time, more of them leaned into what he was saying. Kimmel chuckled awkwardly. Look, I don't write half of this stuff. It's the writers, the network. Stallone leaned forward, elbows on his knees. That's the point, Jimmy. You're just reading lines. I wrote mine. I lived mine. That line hit hard. Even Kimmel couldn't fake a comeback. For a few seconds, he sat there, blinking, trying to switch gears. The producers flashed a cue, signaling for a topic change. Kimmel glanced at his notes. Okay, let's pivot. You posted an Instagram photo last week. You in your home gym with a caption about fighting for what matters. What were you referring to? Stallone shrugged casually, shifting gears with the same smooth control. Family, faith, country. Simple stuff. Stuff we used to agree on. Kimmel smiled. Well, there's nothing controversial about that. Everyone loves family. Until you post a picture with the wrong flag or vote for the wrong guy, Stallone quipped. The room laughed again, more comfortably this time. He wasn't pushing anyone. He was pulling the energy back in his direction. And it was working. No, Stallone continued. People forget I made my career playing underdogs. Rocky was about the guy no one believed in. Now we're at a place where if you don't say the popular thing, you're written off, canceled, mocked. I've been in this business long enough to know fame is fragile, but truth isn't. Kimmel finally softened. That's fair, he admitted. You've earned your space. Stallone nodded. I don't need permission to speak my mind. That's what being American means. And if that bothers people, that's on them, not me. The audience applauded, solidly this time. Not a political cheer. Just a respectful one. Kimmel, to his credit, took the moment for what it was. All right, he said, trying to laugh it off. I was going to roast you a little, but now I feel like I should apologize. Stallone chuckled. You should, but you'd only make it worse. Even Kimmel laughed then genuinely. The show rolled on. They talked about Tulsa King, some behind-the-scenes moments, Stallone's daughters, and a recent documentary project. But something had changed. For the rest of the segment, Kimmel didn't interrupt. He didn't jab. He listened. Stallone had done what few ever do on that stage. He turned the camera, the crowd, and the tone in his favor without raising his voice or breaking a sweat. As the interview continued, the shift in the room was undeniable. The studio audience wasn't just entertained. They were paying close attention now. What had started as a late-night promo turned into something more layered, more real. And Stallone wasn't letting the moment slip away. Kimmel glanced at the next card, but hesitated. We were going to do a quick game, rapid fire with Sly, but I feel like maybe we skip it? Stallone leaned back, relaxed. Why skip it? Let's play. Unless the questions are about climate change or COVID, then I might actually say something that gets us both canceled. The crowd laughed, the tension easing again. Kimmel chuckled. All right, fair warning. Let's keep it safe. He flipped the card and read, Which actor would you never want to fight in real life? Stallone grinned. Dolph Lundgren, hands down. Guy hit like a truck back in the Rocky IV days. He knocked me into the ICU once. True story. The audience gasped, and then laughed. Kimmel followed up. Seriously? Yeah, Stallone nodded. Punched me so hard my heart swelled up. The doctors thought I was having a cardiac event. I told them it was just a Swedish uppercut. Another round of laughs. Kimmel eased into it now, clearly grateful the mood had stabilized. Okay, here's one. If you had to recast Rocky today, who would play him? Stallone paused thoughtfully. I'd go unknown again. Always believed that's what made it work. Rocky wasn't supposed to look like a movie star. He was supposed to look like your neighbor, a guy with a busted dream and a little bit of heart. Kimmel nodded. And now we've got billion-dollar franchises built from that story. Yeah, Stallone said. And that's the American story. You work, you fight. Sometimes you lose. But if you show up every day with heart, you don't really lose. Applause followed. But it wasn't forced. It was earned. Then Kimmel asked, cautiously, do you feel like people in Hollywood still believe in that? Stallone's face shifted slightly. Some do. A lot don't. People love the idea of grit and struggle, as long as it's in a script. But when it's real, when someone actually stands for something unpopular, they get quiet. He didn't say it with bitterness, just honesty. You know, Stallone added, I've had scripts turned down, projects shelved, not because they weren't good, but because I didn't say the right things online. That's not the business I grew up in. The old Hollywood, we argued in private and shook hands after. Now, say one wrong thing and you're out. Kimmel, surprisingly, nodded in agreement. Yeah, the digital age hasn't helped. Stallone smiled. It's helped and hurt. Gave people a voice, but also gave them a mob. A hush settled over the room. Not uncomfortable, just reflective. And that was Stallone's gift that night. He didn't just challenge Kimmel. He made the audience think without preaching. He balanced humor with depth, simplicity with insight. Kimmel closed out the segment, visibly more respectful than when it began. Season 2 of Tulsa King premieres this Friday. Sly, thank you for coming. Stallone shook his hand. Thanks for having me, even if you threw the first punch. Kimmel laughed. I did, and I think I missed. One last smile from Stallone. You did. The camera panned out, the band played, and the crowd gave a standing ovation, not just for a movie star, but for a man who'd proven that sometimes silence and grit say more than any script ever could. As the credits rolled and the audience filed out, the energy backstage was different. Camera operators and crew who'd watched countless interviews from the sidelines were quietly buzzing. One technician leaned over to another. Did you see Kimmel's face after that slapline? I've never seen him freeze like that. Word spread fast. Even before Stallone had made it to his car, clips from the interview were already making their way onto social media. Someone from the audience had uploaded a shaky phone video of the now viral line. At least I didn't get slapped on Oscar night and sit there doing nothing. It exploded. Within the hour, Stallone was trending globally. The hashtags, Stallone on Kimmel, and the Sly slaps back began climbing on X. Conservatives praised him for calling out Hollywood's selective outrage. Even moderates who didn't typically engage in the culture wars chimed in. One popular post read, Stallone just gave a masterclass in how to speak your mind without losing your cool. Absolute legend. Another viral tweet paired a gif of Rocky, throwing a punch with the caption, Kimmel didn't see that right hook coming. Even left-leaning accounts couldn't deny the moment's impact. A progressive commentator tweeted, not a fan of Stallone's politics, but you've got to admit, he handled that segment like a pro. Kimmel got rocked. Backstage, Stallone remained unfazed. He chatted with a few crew members, posed for a quick picture with a young production assistant, and walked calmly out the stage door into the warm Los Angeles night. His publicist trailed behind, phone lighting up nonstop. Dozens of interview requests already. Fox wants to run the clip with commentary. Variety wants a quote. CNN is asking for a response. Stallone shrugged. Let them talk. I said what I needed to say. Meanwhile, over at ABC, Kimmel's team huddled. The control room had already flagged the exchange for review, unsure whether the slap reference would trigger backlash from network execs. But more than that, they were stunned by the reaction. Not from censors, but from viewers. He flipped the narrative, one producer said. Jimmy usually controls the room. Tonight, he got steamrolled. In the hours that followed, traditional media caught up with the internet. Headlines began to appear. Stallone silences Kimmel with sharp retort. The Hollywood Reporter. Live TV knockout. Stallone takes the mic and the moment. The Daily Mail. Kimmel loses control of interview. Stallone commands audience. New York Post. Even TMZ chimed in with their signature flair. Rocky Balboa still hits hard. Kimmel took a verbal uppercut. As the media blitz intensified, Stallone stayed silent. No follow-up tweets, no spin, no clarifying interviews, and that made it even more powerful. He let the clip do the talking. Meanwhile, Kimmel returned to his next show with a lighter tone, making a brief joke. Note to self, don't poke the guy who took on Drago. The audience laughed, but it was clear. He knew he'd been outplayed. He moved on, but the moment lingered. The crowd knew it. The network knew it. Even Kimmel knew it. Back at Stallone's home, his daughters joked about the viral moment. One of them showed him a meme of Rocky raising his gloves over the caption, "Still undefeated." Stallone chuckled. Not bad at all. But he wasn't gloating. He didn't need to. The public had already made their call, and in an era when most celebrity soundbites fade within a day, this one had legs. In the days that followed, the Stallone-Kimmel exchange continued to dominate headlines. But what stood out wasn't just the viral punchline. It was the tone Stallone had set. He hadn't yelled. He hadn't stormed off. He hadn't gone on a political tirade. He simply stood his ground, responded with composure, and let the moment speak for itself. That restraint struck a chord with people. Conservative outlets quickly seized the narrative. Opinion pieces appeared with titles like Stallone Reminds. Hollywood What Class Looks Like. Rocky didn't just win the fight, he won the room. But even outside political circles, the conversation evolved. Commentators on both sides praised the actor's ability to speak honestly without turning the moment into a personal attack. Podcasts debated whether Stallone had set a new standard for celebrity interviews. One cultural analyst noted, "We've grown used to everyone shouting past each other. Stallone didn't shout. He didn't cancel or insult. He just responded with wit and backbone, and that made all the difference." Back at the Tulsa King production set, showrunners were thrilled. Viewership on the trailer spiked by 40%. Google searches for the show doubled. One exec told a streaming outlet, "We couldn't have asked for better organic promotion. Stallone did in 10 seconds what a marketing team would need a month to pull off." Meanwhile, Stallone carried on like nothing had happened. No press, tour, no social media thread dissecting his words. When asked by paparazzi outside a Beverly Hills restaurant what he thought of the buzz, he simply said, "Good night for TV. Let's talk about Tulsa King, yeah?" Still, the impact lingered. Younger fans, many unfamiliar with Stallone beyond his classic roles, began engaging with his content. His Instagram gained thousands of followers overnight. Clips from the Rocky and Rambo films saw a spike in streaming. Some users joked, "Gen Z just discovered who Sly really is, and it's not just the guy who runs up the stairs in Philly." The tone of the discussion wasn't just admiration. It was curiosity. How had someone who'd been in the industry so long still managed to surprise everyone? Perhaps it was because he didn't follow the playbook. He didn't issue statements or apologize. He didn't attack back after the show. He didn't leverage the moment to sell merch or drop a podcast. He just showed up, told his truth, and left with dignity. And that's what stuck. One late-night commentator, summarizing the moment, said, "Stallone didn't go on Kimmel to fight, but when he was challenged, he stood taller." That's a rare thing these days. Even rival hosts gave him credit. On his podcast, Bill Maher said, "That's how it's done. You don't cave, you don't perform, you just show up and speak, like a grown-up." Whether intended or not, Stallone had tapped into a broader fatigue, one that cut across political and generational lines. People were tired of performative outrage, forced apologies, and carefully crafted PR spin. What they wanted, apparently, was something far simpler: honesty, confidence, and a little bit of grit. And for one unforgettable night on Kimmel's stage, that's exactly what Stallone gave them. As the media frenzy slowly gave way to new headlines and fresh viral clips, the Stallone moment didn't disappear. It simply settled into public memory, the way true cultural moments do. It wasn't just something people watched, it was something they remembered. A week after the broadcast, Stallone appeared briefly in a pre-taped segment for a veterans charity gala. He didn't mention Kimmel. He didn't need to. The audience gave him a standing ovation before he even spoke. At the event, a young veteran approached him afterward. "What you said on that stage, that wasn't about politics. That was about backbone. My whole unit watched it." Stallone smiled, offered a quiet handshake, and moved on. No big speeches, no spotlight chasing. Meanwhile, the Tulsa King premiere drew record numbers. Interviews with co-stars referenced the Kimmel moment, almost in passing, with most describing it as pure Stallone, unpredictable, classy, and effective. What became increasingly clear was that Stallone's words struck deeper than expected. The now iconic moment on live TV wasn't about clapping back at a late-night host. It was about reclaiming space for something that had slowly been pushed out of the spotlight. Dignity. Hollywood had long thrived on shock, snark, and spectacle. But Stallone had done the opposite. He didn't shout down Kimmel. He diffused him. He didn't escalate the tension. He controlled it. And in doing so, he reminded viewers across generations that there's still power in poise. People kept sharing the clip weeks later, not because it was outrageous, but because it was rare. One columnist put it best. "In a world full of sound bites, Stallone gave us a scene." Back at ABC, Kimmel's team made subtle changes. A few monologues pulled back on politics. Not a full pivot, just a recalibration. It was clear they had taken notes. Among Hollywood peers, Stallone's stock quietly rose. Directors, actors, even studio heads, many of whom never publicly commented, privately passed along admiration. That's how you carry yourself. That's how you lead. That's how you stay relevant without forcing it. And Stallone, true to form, never tried to ride the moment. No books released, no podcast launched, no merch line with "Fucking Still Standing" printed on it. He simply moved forward, with the same slow, deliberate intensity that's defined his career. 1 month later, during a sit-down with an Italian outlet, he was asked directly about the Kimmel moment. Stallone smirked. "I didn't destroy anyone. I just answered a question." And that was the takeaway. He hadn't gone looking for a viral moment. He'd just shown up as himself, gritty, grounded, and gracious. In the end, what made the encounter stick wasn't the humor, the politics, or even the clash between old Hollywood and new media. It was this. Sylvester Stallone didn't come to win. He came to be real. And in today's world, that alone is enough to make people stop, listen, and remember.